Welcome into Get to Know Your District, the segment here on Morning Kick Round where we scour our fine country to learn all the soccer stories and what's going on the ground in various soccer districts across the country. We are happy to be talking about Richmond, Virginia, home to one of America's longest continuously operating clubs. Happy to welcome Richmond soccer expert, member of River City Red Army, Riverside 93, creator of Can I Kick It podcast, as well as local soccer coach and teacher, Mr. Elliot Barr. Thank you for joining us here on Morning Kick Around, sir.
Hey, how are you guys doing? I hope everything's going well with you guys. I am enjoying a mini snowstorm. So me and my wife are both using the office because we're both teachers. So we've been doing lesson planning all day. So it's fun.
Well, we're happy to have a snow day there in Richmond so that we get to have you on the show live. Thank you so much. You're rocking the Richmond Kickers kit, I see.
Yeah, so this is last year's jersey. This one is very special because the year before that, they had a black and red jersey and tried to say that it was red. So if you know the Kickers, we love red. So they went back to the classic red jersey, and now it's a throwback because we had changed the logo. So I have a throwback kit now.
Yeah, the logo change. We might get to that, Elliot. First of all, thank you for coming on the show. I've been working on this for a little while. This is what Get to Know Your District is about, to get people that are on the ground in places like Richmond to tell us what's going on. I want to know your soccer story before we dive into Richmond a little bit, Elliot. Tell us where you come from in soccer, why you are who you are when it comes to Richmond soccer.
So I'm born and raised in Richmond, Virginia. So where I went to elementary school at, John B. Carey Elementary, shout out to the Cougars, is literally less than a football field away from City Stadium where the Richmond Kickers play at. Real quick background on City Stadium. City Stadium is like a famous stadium here in the city of Richmond. My mom was pom queen. She got named pom queen in that stadium in 1978. Wow. My dad played in the Armstrong Miguel Walker Classic, which is two prominent black high schools in the city of Richmond. He played in that game in 1974. And my brother played in the All City Classic in 2012. So that stadium means a lot to my family. So yeah, I went to John B. Carey Elementary. I started playing soccer there. I was always the bigger kid, but I had the best hands. So there was like, hey, we're going to put you in goalie. So I started playing goalie. And then if you know, growing up in the South, a big black boy, they're like, oh, you're going to now play on the offensive line. I made the transition to the other football, played that for a while. I tried to get back into it in high school, but our high school team wasn't really good. It was kind of just a way of how to keep the Hispanic students and the African students and like, oh, hey, here's something for y'all to do. So it wasn't really like our defensive coordinator was the head coach of our soccer team. So it was just conditioning for football. Like it wasn't no real tactics or anything like that. And then went to college, went to Virginia State University, and my roommate across the hall was from the Netherlands. And he had this flag up with the 3 X's on it. So I asked him what it was, and he said he's an Ajax supporter. So I vividly remember it. My very first true soccer memory where I was like, oh, this is a cool sport was the 2010 UEFA Champions League final. And we're watching it on like this dingy, maybe 32-inch TV. And seeing Inter Milan and Bayern Munich. And then I went home for that summer and watched the World Cup. I didn't really get hooked on it till maybe after I graduated and then watched the 2014 World Cup where I thought Louis Van Gaal and that was the first game I watched was the Louis Van Gaal and the Robin Van Persie goal. And then I found out they were both going to Manchester United. I was like, oh, this is great. And you see how things have been since then. But as far as my Richmond Kickers journey gone, I started working at the YMCA. They were giving us free tickets to go to games, and I had nothing to do, so I started going to games. Got really immersed in it, and I've been covering the team since 2019 because there weren't really any local coverage here. So I took it upon myself, me and my good friend Shanier, who now lives in Minnesota. We've been covering the team since 2019, pandemic and all, and now we are going into year 7 of us covering the team with a full website. We've done, I think last year we did over 50 episodes, men's, women's, and youth team all combined. So we are like covering every aspect of the team and everything like that. And even so much so, we just got approved to have a monthly week show with the manager, Darren Sawatsky. So now listeners will be able to have that more in-depth conversation of learning what's going on.
Yeah, that's great.
So Richmond Kickers, one of the longest continuous running American soccer teams. Obviously, a big part of your soccer life. Outside of that, kind of what is the landscape? How engaged in soccer is Richmond at large?
I would say it's very engaged. Like you'll find obviously, Premier League soccer. You find a lot of Premier League soccer clubs here, but I say Richmond is unique in the sense of we care a lot more about what's going on in the community. Like there's a big DC United contingent, obviously with Richmond fans going up there, even so much so that the motto for the group here in here in Richmond is that every game's a road game. Because literally, like we have to travel 2.5 hours up to DC United every time. But I say, like, for the Kickers atmosphere, I mean, it's grown tremendously since I've been a fan since 2015. I remember crowds of maybe 25, 3K, and I thought that was big. It wasn't until the last couple of years where we're selling out 5,000.
Nice.
55,000 plus. It's big. And I'll also say, like, it's a very local atmosphere. So, like, people here obviously will have the Premier League club. MLS is kind of 50-50. You find a lot of DC United just because of how close we are. But, like, me, for instance, my wife, who probably you saw walk by, she's from Charlotte. So, I also support Charlotte FC due to my wife. But everyone here is someone connected to soccer know of or either support the Richmond Kickers. And then on the flip side of that, you also have people that strictly just support the Richmond Ivy, the new women's team here in the WSL. Those crowds were rivaling some USL and even championship squads as well, how big those atmosphere are. Like I remember one game we had 5,000 plus there. So it is tremendous work about how super local and tight Richmond soccer community is.
Yeah. The thing that has always been unique for me when I look at Richmond, and I'm a Northern Virginia guy, and Elliot will know this, there's a little bit of division. It's not that far, but they're kind of little different worlds. And of course we have in common, Taylor Rockwell, a guy who lived up here, but is from Richmond and has roots there. So when I talk to people like Taylor, what's interesting to me is that, Richmond has, you said, a local character. I mean, this is not a team that kind of, Rob's already talked about the length of existence, which is unique in American soccer. It's not, it's not remarkable by world standards, but in American soccer, for a team to go back to 93 is a big thing. This team has always been locally owned. Like, it's always been a family thing, right? It's a family club. Elliot, is that wrong to say?
No, it's 100% right to say. Like, I remember hearing you guys' show yesterday, which, by the way, I love listening to y'all show. I listen to it when I'm in the mornings, getting ready to teach the kids, teach the youth. But, like, I remember you guys talking about yesterday about, like, how some portion of fans that are now hearing about us getting a top division in USL about wanting, socios or club or fan ownership. I would say Richmond is probably one of the few examples of how, like, it's right there on that. I would say it's right there on that border, just because of Rod Rucrop, our owner, is from Richmond, so it's locally owned. It's not like we have like a millionaire sitting up in Northern Virginia who never comes to Richmond, doesn't know about it, just throws money at it. Like, Rob is there in every aspect, from the youth to being there and the fans. Like, I will give him credit. The last 2 years have not been up to the standards of what we want the Kickers to be, but he'll be there at the exit gate, shaking everyone's hands, talking to them, good, bad, or indifferent. So it really is like, and then also, they pull a lot of people from Virginia State, University of Richmond, Virginia State, Virginia Union to work at the club. Mm-hmm. So it's even more localized in that aspect.
Yeah. I also want to ask about the level. And obviously Richmond soccer is more than just the Kickers. And I know we're focusing on the Kickers because Elliot covers the team. But, this is a club that self-relegated, we'll call it that, I guess, a couple years ago, right?
Twice.
Twice, okay. Right. So you
We're
can kind of
unique.
walk us through that, because there is this argument right now that USL is going after a D1 league, and we talked a lot about that, and how much does it matter, and how much do the local fans in a place like Richmond, like maybe if you're
Mhm.
selling a club to New Yorkers, you got to be like, this is glitz and glamour and spending a bunch of money and all this stuff. If you're in a place like Richmond, do you think it's important to Richmond fans, whether they play in the championship or League One, or when the D1 league comes around, USL Premier or whatever? Are Richmond fans going to be clamoring for that? How does that work?
So I'll take your question and break it down into two parts. I think the part of do fans care? Yes, 100%.
Okay.
Because back in I started 2017. We could tell the Kickers were not competitive, right? 2018, I know you're gonna laugh when I say this, but this is how bad it got. It got to the point where we would show up to the stadium already drunk. So we will be in the stands and be like, all right, today's a loss. It is what it is. Like that team, 2018 team, is notorious because they gave up, I think, 80 goals. Like we scored 30 and we gave up 80. We knew we could not compete. And then right around the summertime, we started to hear rumblings of, USL League One, this new league's coming about. It's a third division. It's a little bit easier on the purse strings, I'll say. And Richmond's not we know we can't compete financially with like the likes of Louisville City, Sacramento. We couldn't, just because the way how the soccer landscape was changing. You had the CBA coming in, so it was taking a lot of the perks that Richmond had of being like, hey, you're this great MLS or okay MLS player, come here, get some starting time. Where now these teams are able to throw like real late contract. Like if you guys remember, like FC Cincinnati went on that amazing US Open Cup run. Like that team was almost an MLS team in USL. It was unfair. So yeah, 2018, the team is about to go. We know the team is going down, and I'll never forget it. There was about a 48-hour period where the Richmond Kickers was about to go away. Like that's how bad the books were. So Rob Ucrop and 22 Holders come together, buy the club. 2019, we transitioned down into League One, and a lot of fans. I would put it like this: a lot of fans, newer fans, are like, "Hey, when are we going back to the championship?" A lot of fans that have been around for a while are like, "No, League One's a good level for where the Kickers are right now." Yeah, everyone wants to get back up to that top level, and I would love to see Richmond in USL Premier. I'd be lying to say if I didn't. But I think right now, for where the Kickers are transitioning to, because we're getting away from paying top dollar to the 23 men on the roster and integrating more of the youth, that right now where League One is a better feel for where it's at. And I say all this because I forgot the second part of the question. So if you repeat again, I can answer it for you.
No, it's okay. That's a good look at it, right? That again, this is a constantly evolving league structure in America, and we don't have to dive into like USL versus MLS or any of that, or NASL, or whether Nice is coming back and all that. We don't have to do any of that. I wanted to get a sense of it. So one thing here. I mean, we're in February, Elliot, so it's it makes sense to bring you on in particular because I'm fascinated by, or I'm interested in your connection to the game, how you got there. I asked you about that initially, because I've had conversations with plenty of Black Americans who said soccer was not a thing for me culturally. I mean, I played when I was a kid. My parents knew nothing about it, but they still went and signed me up for a league and all those things. And I guess, in addition to sort of the wider Richmond picture, just how you feel about the way that sort of Black culture is connecting with soccer in America in 2025.
So I think it's getting better. If I'm being quite frank, I think there's still a ton of work to do because, I mean, quite frankly, if you ask a lot of Black supporters, you kind of feel like it's a glass ceiling. Yeah. Like, there's only so far I can get to with connections and getting to know people. Like, there's always that feeling there. But I say it really started around 2018, right when Atlanta United won MLS Cup, is when you can kind of pinpoint it as you had a Black media soccer boom. So you had podcasts such as River City 93, you had For the Culture, Shea Butter FC, all these different media, podcasts coming out that are now Black voices. Yeah. And one thing that we kind of always joke about is like, who can talk about Black people better than Black people? Like, who knows the culture better than us? So it's been a lot of work on that aspect of it. I think the other thing about it is that when it comes to getting Black people into soccer, is all about just making it relevant. Like, how do I connect this? How do I one make this feel like a safe space? And then two, like, do I see people like me working or around the club? You know, it's kind of because it doesn't have the connection to like an NFL team where it's passed down through generations, and your mom grew up as this fan, and then you became this fan. Soccer is kind of like you are the first generation of fans, so it's like for me, like I know when I eventually have kids, like my child will be the second generation, and I have to teach them like how to be a Kickers fan and things like that. So I think like all the work that you're seeing also with some of the Black supporter groups that are coming around, from Black Diamonds out of New Mexico United, or Featherstone up in Madison and whatnot, or the Comets out of LA Galaxy. It's an extra layer of work that we have to do, because we always get hit back with the rhetoric of, well, why do we need a Black supporters group? Why can't you just join the regular supporters group? Why can't you? And I will push back on that. It's just a safe thing. Like I want to have a safe space where I'm allowed to be me and be around people that understand me, and that also are like, oh, hey, like, I see that you enjoy the sport as well, and making a welcoming experience.
Right. Yeah.
It's great to hear that.
Well, I'm sorry. I just want to tag this a little bit. I know my brain. Sorry, my apologies. But we already, as Americans, we already have to explain ourselves as soccer fans. Like, oh, you're American and you like soccer. What's that about? And then again, it's like an extra layer of that on top of what you're already dealing with. So, interesting insight.
No, yeah. Like, I'll tell you a funny story. So, it was a reporter in Germany who was looking to cover like other teams that are named Kickers. So he reached out to me. The guy had no idea that I was a Black guy. He thought I was white because of my name and because I cover soccer. So we hop on a video chat, and when he sees my face, he's like, "Oh." Like, you can tell that he was shocked for a second. Yeah, he froze for a second because he didn't realize, like, oh, this big Black guy. He's everything. So but it was just funny in that aspect. But yeah, it's a lot of. I have to explain, even to my friends. My friends of 20 plus years. Like I have to explain to them, like, no, I cover soccer. I started my own podcast, things like that.
It's not weird. It's not weird.
It's not. Like I do this because I actually want to do it. I love
That's right.
It's great to hear that the soccer district of Richmond, Virginia, is trending up. There's a women's team attracting fans, and it sounds like the average attendance at Kickers games, and it sounds like there's been some shifting in the youth ranks there in the area as well with the Richmond United. But great to hear that things are on the upswing. Thank you for joining us here on the program. Let our audience know where they could find your content.
So you can find us on Instagram or Blue Sky, rivercity93.com. Like I said, we cover the women's team, we cover the men's team, we cover the youth team as well. And then on top of that, if you're interested in a Black History soccer show, you can also follow on Blue Sky Can I Kick It FC. Right now, we're in the middle of doing our Black History Month post. So for every day this month, we have put up a Black content creator. We have upcoming shows talking about AFCON, Bundesliga, things like that. So it's a Black History soccer show. I know we talked about Taylor Rockwell, his show, Soccer 101. It's kind of like an offset of that. You think about it that way. And then also Walking 90, which is a USL League One kickback show. So we just sit around, me, Cal, Ebony, and Chip. We're various fans of different League One clubs, and we just sit around and just talk about what's going on in League One and throw in a couple of jokes there as well.
All right, MK Ultras, there's a lot of content to dig into. Thank you, Elliot, for being our Richmond, Virginia soccer district expert. Put a pin in it, another district uncovered, put it on the map. Thank you so much for joining us. Viewers, if you haven't subscribed already, please do so. We are on the march to 1,000 subscribers and beyond, so be the next to do so. You can follow us on social media at mkickaround on X, Instagram, and Blue Sky. Write us a note, morningkickaround@gmail.com, or support us with some at ko-fi.com/morningkickaround. Thank you again to Elliot. We got to know his district of Richmond, Virginia